Hey, Renee. I figured the easiest way to do this would just be to put together a little video to walk you through these two problems. Of course, your numbers will be different, but hopefully this will help. So the first one is Rhonda's Revolutionary Eyewear, and we're supposed to do an absorption costing income statement and then a variable income statement. So the absorption costing income statement is going to always have our net sales revenue minus our cost of goods sold, which would be our gross profit, and then minus our selling and administrative costs. So that's how they always do it. So to find our net sales revenue, in fact, let me pull this up here. And I'm going to bring up my calculator so I can use it. All right, so to find my net sales revenue, I'm going to take the number of goggles sold, which is 200,000, times the sales price per unit, which I should be able to do that in my head if I wanted to, which should be 6 million, but I make mistakes when I do it in my head, so I'll just double check. 6 million. And then to find my cost of goods sold, I'm going to take, I've got to figure out all of my, I've got to figure out all my costs of making it, which is going to be my variable manufacturing costs plus my fixed manufacturing overhead per unit. And this is the real difference, is under absorption costing, we include that fixed manufacturing overhead as part of a unit sales cost. And then the sales commission and the selling and administrative costs, we're going to call those all together selling and administrative. So cost of goods sold is going to be the $4 per unit or $14 per unit variable, plus I've got to figure out how much of this fixed manufacturing overhead per unit goes. So to figure that out, I'm going to take the amount of fixed manufacturing overhead, $1,410,000, and divide that by the number of units I produced, which are 235,000. So $6 per unit of fixed manufacturing overhead. So I'm going to add that to the variable manufacturing cost per unit, and my cost of goods sold is $20 per unit. So now I'll take that 20 and multiply it by the number of units sold. It should be 4 million. So my gross profit is my net sales revenue minus my cost of goods sold, which should be $2 million. Then my selling and administrative costs would be my sales commission per unit sold plus the fixed selling and administrative costs. So I'm going to take $5 in sales commissions times 200,000 units sold, should be $1 million, plus the fixed selling and administrative cost. My total selling and administrative cost is 1,220,000. My operating income is just 2 million minus the 122,000, or 780,000. All right. Now they want us to do the same thing, but instead they want us to do a variable costing or a contribution margin income statement. So my sales revenue is going to be the same, which is the 200,000 sold times the $30 per, so $6 million. But now instead of cost of goods sold, I'm going to have my variable costs, and my sales revenue minus my variable costs is my contribution margin. And then my contribution margin minus my fixed costs will be my operating income. So we just separate out variable and fixed costs when we do this style. So our variable costs were the $30, I'm sorry, no, the $14 in manufacturing cost plus the $5 in sales commission. So this is my total variable cost per unit, which is $19. So I'm going to take $19 times the number of units sold. My variable costs were 3,800,000. My contribution margin is just the 6 million in sales minus the 3,800,000 in variable costs, so 2,200,000. And then my fixed costs are just the fixed manufacturing overhead plus the fixed selling and administrative costs. So 1,630,000. All right, and then 2,200,000 minus 1,630,000 gives me an operating income of 570,000. So the rest of this problem is trying to get us to reconcile or figure out why the operating incomes are different. And the reason they're different is because the fixed selling and administrative costs, when we divide out the fixed manufacturing overhead by the number of units produced, and then we figure out how much fixed manufacturing overhead cost there is per unit, and then we multiply that by the number of units sold, we're leaving another 35,000 units times $6 in fixed manufacturing overhead per unit sitting there in our ending inventory. So that's what happens when we do it here, which means our costs will be less, so our operating income will be higher. When we do the variable costing, we're expensing the entire cost, the entire 1,410,000, and not including it in those units that are still sitting there at the end of the period in ending inventory. So the question is going to be, let's see, the blank income statement shows a higher operating income. So that would be this first one, the absorption or conventional income statement. The operating income under blank costing is higher. So under absorption costing is higher because the units sold, let's see, units sold was less than the units produced, right? We produced 235,000 and we only sold 200,000. The difference in operating income between the two income statements is attributable to the blank attached to the units. So we're going to say the fixed costs per unit attached to the units in ending inventory. So again, here we have 35,000 units still in ending inventory, and since we divided up that fixed manufacturing overhead, then some of that $1,410,000 hasn't been listed as an expense yet because it's still sitting there in the units and won't be expensed until we sell the units. Whereas under this, we went ahead and expensed the whole $1,410,000. Let's see. So Rhonda's Revolution Eyewear believes a new sales promotion that costs $100,000 would increase sales to 220,000 goggles. So what we could do to figure that out is we could say, we know our contribution margin here is 2,200,000. And we know that we sold 200 units. So if I 2,200,000 divided by 200,000 units, our contribution margin is $11 per unit. So now if we're going to increase our sales to 2,200,000 goggles, so we're going to, wait a minute. I'm sorry, to 220,000 goggles, means we're going to sell 20,000 more goggles. So if I take $11 per unit times 20,000, I'm going to make 220,000 more. So if I can really do a sales promotion that costs me 100,000, but increases my contribution margin by 220,000, then that's a good deal. So the company should go ahead with the promotion because the additional sales revenue, let's see, the additional contribution margin generated exceeds the additional cost of the promotion. And that's it for 21 or for 21-30, which is number 3, and then the other one you asked for is number 4. All right, so here's number 4. This is the family furniture company, and so what we're supposed to do is just break out the table sold, chairs per table, etc. So it tells us right here that Alfred, Bryce, and Casey are their salespeople. Alfred sold 80 tables with 8 chairs each. So I'm going to say 80 and 8. And then Bryce sold 90 with 6 chairs each. And then Casey sold 50 with 4 chairs each. And then we're supposed to figure out the total number of chairs sold. So 80 times 8 is 640. 90 times 6 is 540. And 50 times 4 is 200. There's the first part. And that wants us to figure out the sales revenue for each of these. So what we have to do that is, so Alfred sold 80 chairs and 80 tables and 640 chairs. So to figure out his sales revenue, I'm just going to take 80 tables times the sales price of tables is $1,200 each, plus 640 number of chairs sold times the $100 sales price of the chair. So Alfred's total sales revenue is $160,000. Do the same for both of the other two. So Bryce sold 90 tables times 1,200 each, plus 540 chairs times $100 each, 162,000. And then we'll repeat the same process for Casey. Casey sold 50 chairs or 50 tables times 1,200 each, plus 200 chairs times $100 each. All right, so there's the sales revenue generated by each salesperson. Then we figure out the variable costs. So the variable costs would be the variable manufacturing costs, 1,020, plus the sales commission of $60. So $1,080 for a table and $40 for chairs. So now we have to go through that same process again. I'll probably talk my way through the first one and then pause it and figure out the other two so you don't have to listen to me work through it. But again, so for Alfred, I'm just going to say Alfred sold 80 tables at a cost of $1,080 a piece, plus 640 chairs at a cost of $40 each. So the total cost for Alfred variable costs are $112,000. Now I'll pause it while I work out the other two. All right, now that I have these, now to find my contribution margin, I just take the net sales minus the variable costs. All right. And then it wants us to figure out the contribution margin ratio for each one. And contribution margin ratio is just the contribution margin divided by the net sales revenue. So for Alfred, our contribution margin is 48,000. And the net sales revenue was 160,000. So 30% is the contribution margin ratio. For Bryce, our contribution margin was 43,200. And our net sales revenue was 162,000. That is 26.67%. And then for Casey, it is 18,000 divided by 80,000. %22.5%. All right. And then the last one, they want us to analyze a little bit why this came out this way. So blank is the sales representative with the highest contribution margin. So that would be Alfred ratio. And this is because he sold more chairs, right? Like he actually sold less tables than Bryce, but he sold a lot more chairs. So he sold the most chairs, which have a higher contribution margin as compared to tables. And that's it. So hopefully that helps. If you're still stuck after watching this, then let's set up a time when we can get together and go over some things. Have a great day, and don't be afraid to reach out if you need more help.